This is KGW News at noon.
And we start here at noon talking about the storm moving in today. We are expecting heavy rain on the coast and in the valley tonight. If you're a skier or a boarder, get ready for some fresh powder because Mount Hood will be getting plenty of snow. Thanks for joining us here at noon. I'm Ashley Korsland in for Brenda. Let's start things off with Rod Hill and a look at the timing of the storm. Rod?
Yeah, this will be one of the strongest storms in terms of moisture, Ashley, that we've seen certainly in a couple weeks for Portland, and overall one of the strongest storms over the last month. So timing-wise, the cold air setting up here in the Gulf of Alaska will start coming in tonight behind our front, as you mentioned. Now, the solid clouds you see and the rain picking up offshore from Astoria, the front is back here right now. That comes into Portland in the 10 o'clock hour, I think, likely passing us by 11 o'clock this evening. Now, behind that is when snow levels really start to dive and mountain snows, including the Coast Range, will start to pick up some snow. So between now and the rest of this afternoon, see, we've had a wave of rain move through Portland. The rain will just start picking up in the next couple of hours, and by the time we get to no later than 4 p.m., it'll be a solid, steady rain. And then that solid, steady rain throughout the entire evening with gusty winds starting to pick up southwesterlies, maybe bouncing to 30 here in Portland eventually this evening. Mount Hood, so far it's been quiet, but they have a winter storm warning that starts at 5 o'clock for heavy snow down to 3,000 feet this evening. And then snow continues to fall through the weekend. We're talking 30 inches for a weekend total up there. Right now, Portland's at 50. This is the warmest part of the day. As the rain picks up in the coming hours, we'll settle down to the 40s. We'll have those impressive valley rain totals, more on the timing and the mountain snow coming up in just a bit.
All right, Rod, thank you. Portland police have released video and photos of a man wanted in 2 separate attacks in downtown Portland. Now, we're going to show you the video, but we just have a warning that it does show the suspect hitting another man with a golf club. It is disturbing. The victim survived and is out of the hospital. This happened on March 13th on Southwest 5th and Salmon. You can see the man swing a golf club and the victim falls to the ground. He then poured hot coffee on the man and stomped on his head. The suspect stole his backpack before getting away. Police believe the same guy was involved in another random attack early the next morning near West Burnside and Southwest 5th. Take a look here. These surveillance photos give a pretty clear look at the suspect. Investigators believe he could be hanging around downtown Portland or in Milwaukee. If you know anything, call police. Well, let's take a live look right now outside of Trump Tower in New York City. Former President, looks like a bus just parked in front of the shot here. Donald Trump is expected to return to New York early next week to turn himself in after a grand jury indicted him yesterday. There we go, clearer look. Sources tell NBC News he is expected to face around 30 charges in connection with alleged hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. We're getting more reaction to this historic indictment. Here's NBC's Bree Jackson.
America waking up to an unprecedented moment in history. Former President Trump indicted in connection with a case involving a $130,000 hush money payment he allegedly made to adult film star Stormy Daniels.
He initially was shocked. After he got over that, he put a notch on his belt and he decided we have to fight now.
Trump blasted the grand jury's vote online, calling it a fake, corrupt, and disgraceful charge. Daniels' lawyer says he respects the decision.
No man is above the law. So I think in one aspect, we've got a system that's really working correctly.
This marks the first time a former president faces criminal charges. President Biden not commenting.
No, I'm not going to talk about Trump's indictment.
Trump allies claim the 2024 Republican presidential candidate is being targeted. Others say let the legal process play out.
It appears to millions of Americans to be nothing more than a political prosecution.
We haven't seen the indictment. We don't know the charges. We don't know the evidence. And yet there are inflammatory accusations about partisanship.
While the exact charge or charges are still unknown, the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg was known to be focusing on a felony charge of falsifying business records. Trump has denied any wrongdoing. And the judge presiding over former President Trump's arraignment is the same judge that presided over a recent case where the Trump Organization was found guilty in a tax fraud scheme. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
President Joe Biden is in Mississippi right now taking a look at damage caused by a tornado last week. Air Force One landed in Jackson, Mississippi earlier this morning. The president and first lady then went to the town of Rolling Fork. The twister destroyed 300 homes and businesses, and at least 21 people died. The president is meeting with homeowners and first responders and getting a briefing from federal and state officials. There will be queer youth marches in every state today in response to a slew of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation around the U.S. People plan to march in downtown Portland at 2 this afternoon. They'll walk from Tom McCall Waterfront Park to Pioneer Courthouse Square. Marches are also planned around the Northwest, including at the Hillsborough Civic Center, in Corvallis, Bend, Medford, Walla Walla, and Boise. A big compromise between nurses and hospitals might help solve the industry's staffing crisis. It all boils down to staff-to-patient ratios. Here's Alma McCarty with the details.
Out of a series of bills proposed this legislative session intended to remedy a hospital staffing crisis in Oregon, disagreement stemmed from this one, mandating nurse-to-patient ratios and imposing penalties should hospitals fail to meet them. A committee heard some emotional testimony from nurses a month ago about the current working conditions.
Could you imagine what it feels like to be proficient and competent at a job you love, yet not have the ability to do your best because you're continually being pushed to do more and more by your employer?
You're pushing these people past their breaking point, and that should worry you.
At that time, hospital admins and the Oregon Association of Hospitals and Health Systems spoke out against the bill, believing it would threaten access to care.
Patients and their loved ones are going to lose if this bill passes.
Several weeks later, both sides reached an agreement, introducing a lengthy consensus amendment at a work session Tuesday.
I am very proud, and I'm not exaggerating about this, of the advocates that are here with me who worked diligently together for months to find solutions to a very tough problem and land on something that we believe is going to work for all of the parties.
Key components to the newly amended bill include a nurse-to-patient ratio written into state law that varies depending on hospital setting, from the ER to the ICU.
One nurse to one patient for trauma patients in the emergency department during active labor and delivery, and in operating rooms. One nurse to two patients in intensive care units. One nurse to three patients in intermediate care units.
The bill also establishes groups within hospitals that will adopt staffing plans that work for their particular workplace. The enforcement of the ratios will be based on complaints, and there's built-in flexibility to deviate from the ratios if necessary.
A limited number will be allowed for a limited number of time because sometimes it's the right thing to do to take in that extra patient.
Safety is kind of a low bar, right? Nobody wants to just think I'm only keeping patients safe.
Matt Calzia is a registered nurse and works for the Oregon Nurses Association. He said while they hope to bring nurses back to the bedside with this bill, it's aimed at keeping them from leaving in the first place.
You want to really engage holistically and know that you're providing really high quality care that's going to help folks. And hopefully, we're going to start moving in that direction.
Alma McCarty, KGW News.
An orca captured from Puget Sound more than 50 years ago is coming home. Members of Washington's Lummi Nation have been fighting for the orca's release from a Miami aquarium. PJ Randawa explains what it took to get here.
To the Lummi people, orcas are considered family, relatives, under the waves. For years, Lummi elder Raynell Morris has fought to win freedom for this stolen orca, known to many as Lolita, Tokatai, or by her Lummi name, Scully Chuktanut. She's been performing for crowds in this small Miami aquarium for more than 5 decades. The push to bring Tokatai home gained momentum recently after the tragic death of another captive orca. Kiska, the last captive orca in Canada, died in May, alone in a featureless tank. Her death inciting a global outcry.
I think Kiska's death really did give a renewed sense of urgency, that it's not a given that Skelly Chucknut is going to hang on, you know, until whenever. It's sooner than later. And the cruelty of having to die without family, a painful death, all of that is working in her favor.
Before Tokatai can return home to Washington, several federal agencies have to sign off on her move, including the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Agriculture. Morris is still, however, convinced that Tokatai could be home by the end of the year.